All right, shalom all. It's your brother Nehemiah, Nehemiah, and we back at you again, right, with the understanding of the strangers part 2. We gonna finish off where we left off, right? And we left off on the Vine's dictionary of to sojourn and dwell. We left off on uh ger and what that meant in its verb and noun form. In the Vine's expository dictionary for the Hebrew and Greek. Um, that's where we left off, so we're gonna continue. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. Let me pull up the PowerPoint and let's get back in business, man. Bear with your brother real quick as I pull this up and we get right back to it. Excuse me. All right, let's go ahead and get into it, man. So let me make sure this is popping up so I can see it. Make sure I can see it on here. All right. Okay, there we go. All right, so y'all see it. We good. We in the door. All right. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it, man. So this is where we left off. Last time, Salakia, for the last time when I had it on the way I had it to show it, it literally pauses my whole screen. So Salakia for that. So we're not gonna do that this time. We ain't gonna do the full screen. We gonna do this. This should be good enough. This shouldn't pause the screen in no way, shape, or form. So the slideshow view, the reading view, it shouldn't do that. So most high willing, we gonna be good. So let's go ahead and bring this out. So this is where we left off. To sojourn, dwell, ger, ger, or gore, I would say, H1481 in the Hebrew, right? The verb form, everything explaining that. And then you have ger, H1616 in its noun form. We went through that, right? For to sojourn or dwell. So let's go ahead and continue. Then you got the Gesenius, right? A dictionary numerically coded to Strong's exhaustive concordance with an exhaustive English index. So the Gesenius, I'm going to do a class on the history with the vines. The vine is very interesting, but the history on the vines and the history on the Gesenius, the history on all these, where these tools come from, where these tools come from, and why, you know, scholars use them and a lot of people use them today, right? So that'll be a class under the How to Study the Bible playlist, because I have everything on playlists on my channel to make it easier to navigate in. I'm going to be doing it by subject, topic, so on and so forth. But this is what it says, right, for stranger in the Gesenius Hebrew Chaldee lexicon, right? You got Deuteronomy 21:36, something strange, a strange or foreign country, right? According to Deuteronomy 31:6. Hence, a stranger, strangers, Genesis 17:12, right? And verse 27, Exodus chapter 12, verse 43. We mentioned that a little bit in part 1. That stranger in 43 is a foreigner who isn't circumcised, right? Sometimes with the additional notion of hostility in Psalms 18, verses 45 and 46, right? Strange gods, you know, then the scriptures. B, a strange or unknown thing, especially used of a strange god. Then you got the scriptures, right? And then you have this, under this, you have H1616, which is that ger, right? Or gar. A sojourner, see the root, right? A sojourner, stranger, foreigner, a person living out of his own country, right? Like Moses did, right? Like Abraham did, right? Genesis chapter 15:13, and the scriptures that go with it, often joined with the synonym of this Hebrew word, a stranger, on the laws of Moses, so on and so forth. Opposite to a native. Opposite to a native. Exodus 12:19, did the scriptures. Then you have this also, the Hebrew of the word, appear to be foreign shepherds and nomadic tribes wandering about with their flocks in the land, such as the Hebrews had formerly been in the land of Canaan. And the Rechabites were in the time of Jeremiah, right? So and then you have with suffix of these Hebrew words, thy or his sojourner, stranger that is living in thy or his country, not house, right? So the Jacinius is a little bit more complex, but you can still glean and extract based on the exhaustive concordance when you use the Jacinius and you use the Strong's exhaustive concordance together with these Hebrew, excuse me, Hebrew numbers, page 1616, Ger or Gar, and then H1481, which are Gore, however you want to do that pronunciation. So let's continue to move on. This is exercising all your biblical tools so you can compare everything and see how everything is coming together when you look at all these different tools. Are they saying the same thing? So on and so forth, right? So you can get a better, so we, not only you, but we, as believers, as Israelites, to get a better understanding while we're reading the text, right? So let's go ahead and move on. Then just for the sake of the class. Obviously, we're not going to have to go to any of these in the Greek, but I did it for the sake of the class, so you can actually see these different strangers in the Greek, right? So you have 10 different uses or types of strangers in the Greek. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, right? So obviously the speech and how they are used, whether it's a verb, adjective, noun, pronoun, so on and so forth, are going to play a big part in how you understand how that word is being used with the proper context that you're reading. All right. So now we're getting to the points that are being addressed, the points that I've heard. I'm going through the points that I've heard. Okay. So that's all I'm dealing with right now is the points that I've heard, and I'm going to deal with the points that I've heard. Right. So points to be addressed, the answers. Firstly, let's address the points mentioned that you will hear depending on who you're speaking to. Right. An Israelite can be a stranger. This is one of the points. Can an Israelite be a stranger? Can an Israelite not be? Can an Israelite not be a stranger? Well, let's find out, right? The answer is yes. Israelite can be a stranger. Okay. Now, we're going to go through the scriptures and we're going to prove that an Israelite can be a stranger, right? Because when you know the word stranger and how it can be used, depending on the use and the type and the context of what this word is being used for, you get the proper understanding on what stranger this is talking about, right? And stranger is not secluded, or not, excuse me, it's not the right word. Stranger is not only used for one nation of people. So we need to understand that stranger can be any, we're strange. Israel is strangers to the Most High. These other nations are strangers to the Most High, right? So anybody from any nation or any nation itself can be a stranger, right? It's on the use of this word is what can stumble people with a negatively charged bias mindset, right? So let's go ahead and prove it with Genesis chapter 15. Let me back out of here. Let me pull up the Salakia. Let me go ahead and pull up this screen. Okay. Salakia. And we're going to share this tab instead. All right. Make sure. All right. Genesis chapter 15. Let me pull my screen, get this out the way. Genesis chapter 15 and verse 12 through 14 is what we're going to read. The book of Genesis, chapter 15, verses 12 through 14. And it reads, I'm going to read it in the New King James. Genesis chapter 15, verse 12. It says, now, when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and behold, horror and great darkness fell upon him. Then he said to Abram, know certainly that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs, and will serve them, and they will afflict them 400 years. And also the nation whom they serve I will judge. Afterward they shall come out with great possessions. So obviously this is talking about something that is going on. This the Most High is telling Abram about something that's going to happen in the future, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you that's going to be watching this video already know the answer to it. But if you don't, we're going to get into that, right? But it says, know certainly that your descendants, right, Israelites, you got Isaac, you got Jacob, then you got the 12 tribes. Know certainly that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs. Salaki, give me 1 second. That is not theirs, and will serve them, and they will afflict them 400 years. So for the sake of the class, since we were going to all these different uses and all these different uses and ways strangers could be used is very important. And you see there again, H1616, this is a gar, right? We went through what a gar is, right? When you go back, you look at the vines, you look at the Zondervan, you look at all the biblical tools to be able to get you the understanding on what stranger this is, right? So you have gar, sojourner, a temporary inhabitant, a newcomer lacking inherited rights of foreigners in Israel, though conceded rights. This is the biblical usage. People usually focus on just the biblical usage, but you cannot just focus on the biblical usage. You have to, the Strong's definitions. This is the concordance definition of this word gar or ger, right? Properly a guest. When you see it in the vines, it says a client. By implication, a foreigner, alien, sojourner, or stranger, right? So when you use all your biblical tools, you go to the Strongs, you go to the vines, you read the context of what this stranger in this particular context is meaning, you'll be able to get a better understanding on what this stranger is, right? And according to the context of what we're reading, this has to do with Abraham. So if has to do with Abraham, Abraham is dwelling in the land that is not his. So he's a sojourner in this context right now. He's a temporary inhabitant in this context right now, right? You have to pay attention to the context when you're reading. And obviously, so you see the root word comes from H1481, which is another use of stranger. So the root word from that, which is how we're getting H1616, is to sojourn, to dwell for a time, because that wasn't the resting place for him. To sojourn, dwell for a time, to abide, stay, temporarily dwell. Right? Remember, you have to remember context. Context is going to be very important so you can understand how this word is being used. It's very, very important. If you disregard context, you are going to misunderstand the way this word is being used. Right? So let's go ahead and back up out of here. Right? And now the next point, let me go ahead and share this. I wish this can just pull up, present something else. I wish this can just pull up right here. So we have, we have Genesis chapter 15 verses 12 through 14. Then we have Exodus chapter 12 verses 33 through 36 and verses 40 through 42, and that is what we're going to read. Right? Exodus chapter 12 verses 33. Excuse me. Let's go ahead and pull that up. All right. Let's go ahead and pull it up, man. It's not wanting to go. All right, there we go. There we go. Show me something. All right, Exodus chapter 12, verses 33 through 36. And it says right here, right? And the Egyptians urged the people that they might send them out of the land in haste, for they said, we shall all be dead. So the people took their dough, right? I'm pretty sure y'all familiar with what this is getting into, right? So the people took their dough before it was leavened, having their kneading bowls bound up in their clothes on their shoulders. Now the children of Israel had done according to the word of Moses, and they had asked from the Egyptians articles of silver, articles of gold, and clothing. And Yahweh had given the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they granted them what they requested. Thus they plundered the Egyptians. Right. So verses drop down to verse 40 through 42. Right. It says, now the sojourn of the children of Israel. Remember Genesis 15. The Most High told Abraham that your descendants will be strangers in a strange land. And we seen where the root word of it was to sojourn, or to temporarily dwell, or dwell for a time. Just because we was there for 400 something years doesn't mean that that's where we're going to stay. That was still a this is a long temporary dwelling. Temporary dwelling, right? Now the sojourn of the children of Israel who lived in Egypt was 430 years. And it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, on that very same day, it came to pass that all the armies, I have to emphasize this, all the armies of Yahweh went out from the land of Egypt, because there is a point we're going to get to that I've heard somebody say that it's just wild. But this right here kind of annihilates that point. All the armies of Yahweh went out from the land of Egypt, right? It is a night of solemn observance to Yahweh for bringing them out of the land of Egypt. This is that night of Yahweh, a solemn observance for all the children of Israel throughout their generations, right? So the point is on this is sojourn of the children of Israel. Let's go ahead and see which word this is. Remember, sojourn could be interchangeable with stranger. We've seen that when we went through the 9 different uses in the Hebrew in the Old Testament on what they can be interchangeable with. We also seen that, and I think it's in the Zondervan, right? So let's go to, I passed it. So like there, sojourning, this right here, page 4186. Now the sojourning, seat, assembly, dwelling place, dwelling, dwellers, seat, sitting, those sitting in company, right? Dwelling place, dwelling. Right? So the sojourn, right? So let's read this in the KJV as well for the sake of the class, right? It's gonna be it's gonna be real good to go. Oh, get back out of it. Lock here. Let's go to it, right? And the Egyptians were urgent from the people, Exodus 12:33. And the Egyptians were urgent upon the people that they might send them out of the land in haste, for they said, we will all be dead men. So likely, I'll just get it drop down to the point. 30, verse 30. And the children of Israel journeyed. Salakia, where am I at? Okay. Now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years. So we see it's the same thing in the King James and in the New King James, right? And we see that that sojourn was a temporary dwelling, right? It was a fulfillment of Genesis chapter 15. So with that being said, let's go back. Salakia, I hate when it does this. I have to do that. So let's go back. Oh man, it won't even pop my thing up now. Okay. Now let's go back. Excuse me. to the PowerPoint, right? And we got to understand something. Now that we've proven an Israelite can be a stranger, we see that in Genesis chapter 15, verses 12 through 14. We see that in Exodus chapter 12, verses 33 through 36, and verses 40 through 42, right? What we need to understand is that Israel being a stranger in a strange land was prophesied by Yahweh. Alongside the fulfillment of that prophecy in Exodus regarding our deliverance from captivity, which we just read in Exodus, the 12th chapter. Something to note is that the stranger or strangers used, H16:16 in those passages, means a guest, temporary inhabitant, dwell for a time, and temporarily dwell, right? And we just went through that and we've seen that, right? We also have all those biblical tools that say the same thing. All right. So let's go ahead and we're going to go to the next slide. But before I do, I want to make sure that this is still running. All right. All praises to the Heavenly Father. Now, here's another point. And if you really just sit back and you listen to this point, you really just sit back and listen to the point and how it is worded, it does not make sense at all. Right? So we're going to read it. It says, now, because it says stranger in the land of Egypt, remember, Egypt wasn't the only place where Egypt wasn't the only place we were dwelling in. We had many other Israelites from afar nations where we sojourned in their nation. Now, what I will say is we just read a scripture that doesn't prove that saying in Exodus 12. I'm going to read it again. Now, because it says stranger in the land of Egypt, remember, Egypt wasn't the only place. He's the brother that was referencing this was referencing Leviticus 19 and verse 33, because this is what this class is about, right? And we're going to get to that point, right? But I want to address these points first off. Now, because it says stranger in the land of Egypt, remember, Egypt wasn't the only place we were dwelling in. Remember that. Egypt wasn't the only place we were dwelling in. That's what was said from what I've heard. This is verbatim quotes, verbatim, word for word, word for word. We had many other Israelites from afar nations where we sojourned in their nation. Does not make sense, but okay. The answer is no. Israel did not dwell outside of Egypt. If you just simply go back to Genesis, we would know that, right? The answer is no. Israelites were not scattered from afar nations throughout other nations. This is false. Prove it. We're going to go read a little bit, right? So bear with me. That's the reason why I said this might be a 2 or 3 part, maybe a 4-part class, because we got to the whole stranger topic is a very controversial topic. If you believe this, if you see in the scriptures that it's clearly that in certain contexts is that the stranger is someone of another nation, but their brothers or sisters try to say that it's Israel. If you see that it's not saying that, you could be looked at differently. And that's just what it is. That's what it comes with. But we searching for the truth. We seeking for the truth and nothing but the truth. Right? So we're going to go back and we're going to Salakia. We're going to go get some little history real quick. I'm going to read it again. Now, because it says stranger in the land of Egypt, remember, Egypt wasn't the only place we were dwelling in. We had many other Israelites from afar nations where we sojourned in their nation. Let me go ahead and just grab the scripture for the sake of this saying so you can understand where the brother was drawn this from, right? So let me go ahead and pull this up really quick. We're going to present this right? So we can see where this is being drawn from, where he's getting this from, right? Why he's saying it that way, right? So Leviticus chapter 19, verses 33 through 34, it says, "And if a stranger dwells with you in your land, you shall not mistreat him." In the KJV, it will say vex him. Verse 34, "The stranger who dwells among you shall be to you as one born among you, and you shall love him as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God." Right? So the brother was extracted from this when he was saying, even though it's saying strangers in the land of Egypt, right? Let me pull this back up so you guys can see that that's where the extraction was coming from, right? Which is here. You see it? Now, because it says stranger in the land of Egypt, that's so you could see where he was why he was saying that, right? So with that being said, let's go back. We're going to go back into history before we were in the land of Egypt to see if what was said is correct or not. Because I have the answer up here, no. And I substantiate the answer by a prove it section with all these. Look, we're gonna go through all of this. Genesis 45, so the whole 46th chapter, right? Majority of the 47th chapter. We're going through all of that. So if you're not ready to sit back and read, then you might as well just stop watching the class. But this is what we finna do. So let's go ahead and pull the blue letter back up and let's get started. Right, Genesis chapter 45, starting at verse 15 through 25. Okay. All right. So Slovakia. All right. This is the book of Genesis, chapter 45 and verse 15. And it reads, "Moreover, he kissed all his brothers and wept over." This is talking about Joseph, right? If you go back and get context, you'll be able to see this. But for the sake of the class, it's like how we're already going through a lot. I wanted to start at verse 15. "Moreover, he kissed all his brothers and wept over them. And after that, his brothers talked with him. Now the report of it was heard in Pharaoh's house, saying, Joseph's brothers have come. So it pleased Pharaoh and his servants well. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, say to your brothers, do this." Pay attention while we going through this. It's very important to be able to understand if that saying that was said is correct or if it's incorrect. "And Pharaoh said to Joseph, say to your brothers, do this, load your animals and depart, go to the land of Canaan." This is what Pharaoh is saying to Joseph to tell his brothers to do, to go to the land of Canaan, which is go back to the land of Canaan. Well, let me not jump the gun. Let's just continue to read. Verse 18, "Bring your father and your household and come to me. I will give you the best of the land of Egypt, and you will eat the fat of the land. Now you are commanded, do this. Take carts out of the land of Egypt for your little ones and your wives. Bring your father and come. Also, do not be concerned about your goods, for the best of all the land of Egypt is yours." Then the sons of Israel, Jacob, did so. And Joseph gave them carts according to the command of Pharaoh, and he gave them provisions for the journey. He gave to all of them, to each man, changes of garments, but to Benjamin he gave 300 pieces of silver and 5 changes of garments. And he sent to his father these things: 10 donkeys loaded with the good things of Egypt, and 10 female donkeys loaded with grain, bread, and food for his father for the journey. So he sent his brothers away, and they departed. And he said to them, see that you do not become troubled along the way. Then they went up out of Egypt and came to the land of Canaan to Jacob their father. So Israel, Jacob, was living in the land of Canaan before the journey to Egypt. We just seen Pharaoh said that they would get the best of the land. Take this, get your carts loaded up. Here you go. Bring your father back and the family with you. Right? So we see Israel, Jacob is in the land of Canaan. Pharaoh's commanding Joseph to send his brothers back to the land of Canaan to go get their father so they can come to Egypt. Remember Genesis chapter 15, what was prophesied to Abraham by the Most High. Okay. So it's not from there, we're going to go to chapter 46 and we're reading the entire chapter. Like I said, if you don't want to walk, if you can't watch it all at once, come back to it or just leave the class if it's too much. Right. So with that being said, Genesis the 46th chapter, we're going to go ahead and slide over. Right. So Genesis chapter 46, verse 1. It says, so Israel took his journey with all that he had and came to Beersheba and offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac, Then God spoke to Israel in the visions of the night and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, here I am. So he said, I am God, the God of your father. Do not fear to go down to Egypt, for I will make of you a great nation there. I will go down with you to Egypt, and I will also surely bring you up again, and Joseph will put his hand on your eyes. Then Jacob arose from Beersheba, and the sons of Israel carried their father Jacob, their little ones, and their wives in the carts which Pharaoh had sent them to carry him. That's what we just read in Genesis 45. But I want to put emphasis on something. Then Jacob arose from Beersheba, and the sons of Israel, his sons, carried their father Jacob, their little ones, their children, and their wives in the carts which Pharaoh had sent to them. So Jacob, the sons of Israel outside of Joseph and his sons, 10 tribes coming with their father. Right? Joseph has his children still there. So it's 10 tribes. It's not 12 until they all with each other in Egypt. Then Jacob arose from Beersheba, and the sons of Israel carried their father Jacob, their little ones, and their wives in the carts which Pharaoh had sent to carry them. Every one of the household of Israel, the household of Jacob, his sons, their households, left Canaan and went to Egypt. Let's continue to read verse 6. So they took their livestock and their goods, which they had acquired in the land of Canaan, and went to Egypt. So they took their livestock and their goods, which they had acquired in the land of Canaan, and went to Egypt. Jacob and all his descendants with him. This goes to show that every one of the seed left to Egypt. We were nowhere else after that. So they took their livestock and their goods, which they had acquired in the land of Canaan, and went to Egypt, Jacob and all his descendants with him. His sons and his sons' sons, his daughters and his sons' daughters, and all his descendants he brought with him to Egypt. Verse 8. Now these were the names of the children of Israel. Jacob and his sons who went to Egypt. Reuben was Jacob's firstborn. The sons of Reuben was Hanach, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. The sons of Simeon. So it's going through everybody that went. The sons of Reuben were Hanach, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. The sons of Simeon were Jemuel, Jamin, Ohad, Jachin, Zohar, and Shaul, the son of a Canaanite woman. The sons of Levi were Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. The sons of Judah were Onan, Shelah, Perez, and Zerah. But and Onan died in the land of Canaan. The sons of Perez were Hezron and Hamal. The sons of Issachar were Tola, Puvah, Job, and Shimron. The sons of Zebulun were Sered, Elon, and Jaleel. These were the sons of Leah, whom she bore to Jacob in Padanaram with his daughter Dinah. All the persons, his sons and his daughters, were 33. So we see, though, everyone that left the land of Canaan to go to Egypt. Verse 16. The sons of Gad were Ziphion, Haggai, Shunai, Esbon, Eri, Arodi, and Areli. The sons of Asher were Jimnah, Ishua, Isui, Beriah, and Shirah, their sister. And the sons of Beriah were Heber and Melchiel. These were the sons of Zilpah, whom Laban gave to Leah, his daughter, and these she bore to Jacob, 16 persons. The sons of Rachel, Jacob's wife, were Joseph and Benjamin. And to Joseph in the land of Egypt is what I was saying earlier. Joseph's children still in Egypt. And to Joseph in the land of Egypt were born Manasseh and Ephraim, whom Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bore to him. The sons of Benjamin were Bela, Bechur, Eshbel, Gerah, Naaman, Ehi, Rosh, Muppim, Huppim, and Ard. These were the sons of Rachel who were born to Jacob, 14 persons in all. The son of Dan was Husham. The son of Naphtali were the sons of Naphtali were Jaziel, Guni, Jezar, and Shillem. These were the sons of Bilhah, whom Laban gave to Rachel his daughter, and she bore these to Jacob, 7 persons in all. And all the persons who went with Jacob to Egypt, who came from his body, besides Jacob's sons' wives, were 66 persons in all. And the sons of Joseph, who were born to him in Egypt, were 2 persons. So that's why I said you got 10 tribes that was with Jacob. The other 2 tribes with Joseph in Egypt. And the sons of Joseph were born to him in Egypt were 2 persons. All the persons of the house of Jacob who went to Egypt were 70. Verse 28. Then he sent Judah before him to Joseph to point out before him the way to go. So, let me get a little water real quick. Mouth a little dry. Genesis chapter 46, verse 28. Then he sent Judah before him to Joseph to point out before him the way to Goshen. And they came to the land of Goshen. So Joseph made ready his chariot and went up to Goshen to meet his father Israel. And he presented himself to him and fell on his neck and wept on his neck a good while. And Israel said to Joseph, now let me die, since I have seen your face, because you are still alive. Then Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's household, I will go up and tell Pharaoh and say to him, my brothers and those of my father's house who were in the land of Canaan have come to me. Verse 32. And the men are shepherds, for their occupation has been feed livestock. Excuse me. I'm going to start at verse 31 again. It says, then Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's household, I will go up and tell Pharaoh and say to him, my brothers and those of my father's house who were in the land of Canaan have come to me. And the men are shepherds, for their occupation has been to feed livestock, and they have brought their flocks, their herds, and all that they have. So it shall be when Pharaoh calls you and says, what is your occupation? That you shall say, your servant's occupation has been with livestock from our youth even till now, both we and also our fathers, that you may dwell in the land of Goshen, for every shepherd is an abomination to the Egyptians. Now you got to understand the customs of the Egyptians. They looked at a lot of animals as gods. So when you see scriptures, I can't remember where it's at off the top of my head right now, when it was like that the Egyptians don't eat with the Hebrews because it's an abomination, is because we did sacrifices, and they idolized animals. Their customs was different. So us being shepherds and us having customs of sacrifices unto the Most High, it's contrary to their customs, right? So this is why Joseph was on this one. It was like, hey man, tell them that y'all shepherds. So is you stand separate from them, right? That you shall say. So verse 33 again. So it shall be when Pharaoh calls you and says, "What is your occupation?" That you shall say, "Your servant's occupation has been with livestock from our youth even till now, both we and also our fathers, that you may dwell in the land of Goshen, for every shepherd is an abomination to the Egyptians." Right? So now we're going to go to chapter 47 and we're going to read verses 1 through 12. Right? Genesis chapter 47, verse 1. It says, Then Joseph went and told Pharaoh and said, My father and my brothers, their flocks and their herds, and all that they possess have come from the land of Canaan, and indeed they are in the land of Goshen. And he took 5 men from among his brothers and presented them to Pharaoh. Then Pharaoh said to his brothers, What is your occupation? And they said to Pharaoh, Your servants are shepherds, both we and also our fathers. And they said to Pharaoh, We have come to dwell in the land because your servants have no pasture for their flocks. For the famine is severe in the land of Canaan. Now, therefore, please let your servants dwell in the land of Goshen. We are in Egypt now. We are in I think they call it a metropolitan, because Goshen is interchangeable with, I think it's Ramses. When you go into it, Goshen and Ramses are kind of like interchangeables. Now, therefore, please let your servants dwell in the land of Goshen. Then Pharaoh spoke to Joseph, saying, Your father and your brothers have come to you. Slockley. Verse 5. Then Pharaoh spoke to Joseph, saying, Your father and your brothers have come to you. The land of Egypt is before you. Have your father and brothers dwell in the best of the land. Let them dwell in the land of Goshen. And if you know any competent man among them, then make them chief herdsmen over my livestock. Then Joseph brought in his father Jacob and set him before Pharaoh, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh. What is an Israelite doing blessing a heathen? Pharaoh said to Jacob, How old are you? And Jacob said to Pharaoh, The days of the years of my pilgrimage are 130 years. Few and evil have been the days of the years of my life, and they had not attained to the days of the years of the life of my fathers in the days of their pilgrimage. So Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from before Pharaoh. And Joseph situated his father and his brothers and gave them a possession in the land of Egypt, in the best of the land, in the land of Ramses, as Pharaoh had commanded, right? So I said in Goshen and Ramses, when you start to look at it, it's like they're the same place. You know, when I was looking at this, I'm like, dang, so you would think Ramses is a city in Goshen, but when you start looking at the text and you start looking at biblical tools, you see like it's more so interchangeable. Ramses is Goshen and Goshen is Ramses. You know, you can go look into that yourself. Genesis chapter 47, verse 12. Then Joseph provided his father, his brothers, and all his father's household with bread according to the number of their families. Right. So from there, we're going to go down to verses 27 through 28. Genesis chapter 47, verse 27 through 28. So Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt, in the country of Goshen, and they had possessions there and grew and multiplied exceedingly. Right? So Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt, in the country of Goshen, and they had possessions there and grew and multiplied exceedingly. And Jacob lived, excuse me, and Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. So the length of Jacob's life was 147 years. When the time drew near that Israel must die, he called his son Joseph and said to him, now if I have found favor in your sight, please put your hand under my thigh and deal kindly and truly with me. Please do not bury me in Egypt. Or Salakli. I didn't even need verse 29. And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. So the length of Jacob's life was 147 years. Right. So now we see that Israel, or Jacob, he's at the end of his days in Egypt, but he doesn't want to be buried in Egypt. We got to remember that everyone came with him from the land of Canaan. Sons, wives, sons, daughters, sons, everyone. No one was left behind. Everybody came to Egypt. Every Israelite came to Egypt. We were not scattered from afar nations. And we're going to continue to read to further substantiate the truity of what I'm saying, and to cast out the thing that was said, which is false. Right. Genesis chapter 50. Genesis chapter 50. And we're going to read verses 22 through 23. Genesis chapter 50, verses 22 through 23, right? So Joseph dwelt in Egypt, he and his father's household. So Joseph dwelt in Egypt, he and his father's household. And Joseph lived 110 years. Joseph saw Ephraim's children to the third generation. The children of Machir, the son of Manasseh, were also brought on Joseph's knees. It's kind of crazy to see what stories Joseph would tell. See, 3 generations. Joseph saw Ephraim's children to the third generation. The children of Machir, the son of Manasseh, were also brought up on Joseph's knees. Salakia. So we could see the death of Joseph is coming. Joseph ended up dying, right? So let's continue. Let's go to Exodus now. Now that we went through all of that, let's go to Exodus now. Remember, we were in the land of Goshen. All of us in the land of Goshen, the best of the land of Egypt, right? We're going to read Exodus chapter 1, verses 1 through 7. It says, now these are the names of the children of Israel who came to Egypt. Each man and his household came with Jacob. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. Pay attention, man. This is all that who's in Egypt. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin. Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. All those who were descendants of Jacob were 70 persons, for Joseph was in Egypt already. And Joseph died, all his brothers, and all that generation. And Joseph died, all his brothers, and all that generation. But the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly, multiplied and grew exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them. Right? Let's continue. Exodus, verse 11, actually. Let's go down to verse 11. Therefore, they set taskmasters over them to afflict them with their burdens, and they built for Pharaoh supply cities, Pithom, and Ramses. Right? Taskmasters set over us. Okay. Chapter 8, verses 20 through 22. Let's go there. It says, and Yahweh said to Moses, Rise early in the morning and stand before Pharaoh as he comes out to the water. They say to him, thus says the Lord, let my people go that they may serve me. Right? Or else, if you will not let my people go, behold, I will send swarms of flies on you and your servants, on your people, and into your houses. The houses of the Egyptians shall be full of swarms of flies, and also the ground on which they stand. And in that day I will set apart the land of Goshen. And in that day I will set apart the land of Goshen. This is where we were dwelling. All of us, in which my people dwell, that no swarms of flies shall be there, in order that you may know that I am Yahweh in the midst of the land. Pay attention. Chapter 9, verses 22 through 26. We might not have that much time left. Okay. Exodus chapter 9, verses 22 through 26. Then Yahweh said to Moses, stretch out your hand toward heaven, that there may be hail in all the land of Egypt, on man, on beast, and on every herb of the field throughout the land of Egypt. And Moses stretched out his rod toward heaven, and Yahweh sent thunder and hail, and fire darted to the ground, and Yahweh rained hail on the land of Egypt. So there was hail, and fire mingled with hail, so very heavy that there was none like it in all the land of Egypt since it became a nation. And the hail struck throughout the whole land of Egypt, all that was in the field, both man and beast. And the hail struck every herb of the field and broke every tree of the field. Only in the land of Goshen, where the children of Israel were, there was no hail. So we see as we going through it, it further disproves what was said. We were nowhere else but the land of Goshen. We were nowhere else but in Egypt. Let's continue to go through it. Right? That if that's not enough, let's continue to go through it. Exodus chapter 12, verses 31 through 42. Exodus chapter 12, verses 31 through 42. It says, then he called for Moses and Aaron by night and said, rise, go out from among my people, both you and the children of Israel, and go, serve Yahweh as you have said. This is Pharaoh. Also take your flocks and your herds, as you have said, and be gone, and bless me also. And the Egyptians urged the people that they might send them out of the land in haste, for they said, we shall all be dead. So the people took their dough before it was leavened, having their kneading bowls bound up in their clothes on their shoulders. Now the children of Israel had done according to the word of Moses, and they had asked from the Egyptians articles of silvers, articles of gold, and clothing. Right? When the Most High said in Genesis chapter 15, they said that they should leave with great possessions. Fulfilled. Now the children of Israel had done according to the word of Moses, and they had asked for the Egyptians articles of silver, articles of gold, and clothing. Verse 36. And Yahweh had given the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they granted them what they requested. Thus they plundered the Egyptians. Then the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 men on foot besides children. Then the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 men on foot besides children. Why isn't saying if the verbatim quote was correct? Why isn't it saying the children of Israel in Egypt, the children of Israel in this city, the children of Israel in that country? But it says the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses, Goshen, to Succoth. The children of Israel. That's we got to remember, man, what we read. We read all the history on everyone going to Egypt from Canaan. And we've been dwelling there since the time our forefather Jacob died, since Joseph died, since that whole generation with Joseph died. We've always been there. 430 years. Ain't been nowhere else. Right? Verse 38, and mixed multitude went up with them also, in flocks and herds, a great deal of livestock. And they baked unleavened cakes of the dough which they had brought out of Egypt. This is another point to pay attention to. I know a lot of people got their own understanding on this. I'm not here to debate. We're gonna go through the scriptures. And mixed multitude went up with them also, in flocks and herds, a great deal of livestock. And they baked unleavened cakes of the dough which they had brought out of Egypt, for it was not leavened, because they were driven out of Egypt and could not wait, nor had they prepared provisions for themselves. Now, the sojourn of the children of Israel who lived in Egypt was 430 years. And it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, on that very same day, it came to pass that all the armies of Yahweh went out from the land of Egypt. All. We were nowhere else. All. We were nowhere else. But if Exodus isn't enough, it is a night of solemn observance to Yahweh for bringing them out of the land of Egypt. We were nowhere else. Why the lies? Why the pride? It's never that serious. It is a night of solemn observance to Yahweh for bringing them out of the land of Egypt. This is that night of Yahweh, a solemn observance for all the children of Israel throughout their generations. We were nowhere else. It calls into question anyone who uses that type of logic to try to insert something that is clearly not what we want it to be. It causes question of character at that point. But there's more. If Exodus isn't enough, there's more. Right? If Exodus isn't enough, right? Let's go back to the presentation. We got a few minutes left, man. We're gonna see what we can see what we can eat off this real quick. Right? If that wasn't enough, Genesis 45, 15 through 25, Genesis chapter 46, the 46th chapter entirely, Genesis chapter 47, verses 1 through 12. If I were you, I would just go back and read all Genesis 45, chapters 45, all the way through 50, all the way through from Exodus chapter 1, all the way to chapter 12. History's right there. Chapter 47, verses 1 through 12, verses 27 through 28, all of this. If this wasn't enough, right? We got to understand something. Given the history shown from the journey from Canaan to Egypt, Jacob, or Israel, and all his family, sons, daughters, their wives, and their children all came to Egypt, specifically the land of Goshen, and were temporarily dwelling there until the time of Moses, the Exodus. During the time of the Exodus, it clearly states all the armies of Yahweh left Egypt. Exodus 12:41. We just read that. The scripture never references us being in other lands before the Exodus or after the 12 tribes settled in Egypt. There's no scripture that could substantiate this claim. Now, because it says stranger in the land of Egypt, remember, Egypt wasn't the only place we were dwelling in. We had many other Israelites from afar nations where we sojourned in their nation. This quote verbatim saying does not even make sense in itself. We had many other Israelites from a far nation where we sojourned in their nation. This is off the dome right here. This is made up. because the scriptures don't say that. They don't say that. Let's continue. Right? You know what? We might have to leave it right there. And this is the end of part 2, right? Understanding the strangers. We gotta understand something, man. A light set on the hill. It's one thing. Most people, they can get mad. They can hit the comment board. You a coon. You a Christian Israelite. You love a white man. You whatever other nonsense they willing to say. I don't care. Never have. You know, this is about the truth. The truth, man. I'm not into I don't want to feel the lake of fire. I don't. I don't even want to think about it. And I don't wish that on anyone. But if we can't check our spirit, if we can't put away the biased mindsets, negatively charged biased mindsets, if we need to relearn coming into the faith, and I start to understand more and more when people say one West doctrine. Because when you're under that and you see it, you know the doctrine, you've been teaching it, and then you just so happen to be like, you know what, let me actually apply this scripture, Acts 17:11. Let me receive what brothers are saying. Let me receive, even outside of not hearing it. If you're just reading, you're going to come across these things yourself without even having to hear it. I didn't even hear a breakdown about the strangers. I was just happened to be reading Leviticus, and I caught it. Like, oh, shoot, hold on, man. This ain't saying what I've been taught. This ain't saying what I've been taught, you know, and you start questioning stuff like, damn, okay, if that's the case in this, what's the case in something like, oh man, we got to do a thorough examination of everything now. Everything. Right? Christians ain't got everything wrong. Jehovah's Witnesses ain't got everything wrong. Israel ain't got everything wrong. Right? This is the reason why you have to apply Acts 17 and verse 11. Receive the word with all readiness of mind and search the scriptures daily to see if those things are so. You also have to stand on Romans chapter 3 and verse 4. Let the Most High be true and every man a liar. This, which is one of my slogans. Everything somebody tell me about the scriptures is a lie until I verify it. Give me the scriptures. I don't want to hear your exegete. Just give me the scriptures. You can just brief it what you think this is saying. That's about it. You know, I'll receive the word and I'll receive the word as much as I can, you know, but I would, it's not to say I would just totally just like, brother, don't do that. So I wouldn't do that. I would let them get their point across, but I would just keep it in mind, but just give me the scriptures and I will go examine it myself. Actually applying that Romans 3 and verse 4, let the word of the Most High be true, every man a liar. Everybody a liar until it's instantiated in this text and it makes sense and the biblical tools is used in this. Hey man, you was right. You was right on that. You're right on that. All praises to water. Brother, you was wrong on that. You know, it's okay to be wrong. How you gonna grow if you're never wrong? Right? But Romans 3 and 4. And then John chapter 16, verses 13 through 15, where the spirit of truth will reveal all things to you. If you walking in this sincerely, you walking with this in humility, you walking with this in the spirit of a child, like a Mashiach said, that unless you be like these little children. A lot of Israel don't do that. They'll read it and they want other people to be like that, but themselves never apply that to themselves. Right? It's a lot of scriptures that people do classes on, put out there, but never apply to themselves. But outside of that, it should be Nehemiah, Ak Nehemiah. This is Understanding the Strangers Part 2. Hope it was edifying. May the Most High watch over you all. Shalom.